Israelis are wondering, what kind of country will their kids grow up in? Rarely have so many railed against their new leaders and asked how their cherished state was left with the ultra-religious and the far right.
We are talking about it every day, every evening after we put them to bed. And I hope I'm not going to cry, but we gave a lot to arrive to this country. I hope so much that my 4 kids will have a different state, a different government, a government of justice in which we are equals.
They warn of an assault by the new coalition on the rule of law. So they say they came to save democracy.
This government will not be any good for women, for LGBTQ, for the impoverished people.
Netanyahu said equality, democracy will be protected.
Don't believe him. He's in front of trials. He wants to change the whole system so we can get out.
But what about old hopes? Like a shared future with the Palestinians.
Your hat is a Palestinian flag and an Israeli flag, and it says peace, and you're holding a Palestinian flag.
Yeah.
People who think like you are a tiny, tiny minority in Israel.
It's a problem. I just hope that when we're doing that, more and more people will listen.
But no one is listening. In fact, our filming's interrupted as they fight over whose protest this really is.
What's happening? What's the problem?
All good. They didn't like the Palestinian flags, and that's all.
This is a battle among Israelis about who owns the vision for this country, the liberals or the nationalists, the secular or the religious. These are old dividing lines in Israel, but they're back on display. These people can win the streets of Tel Aviv for a night, but in Israel at large, they've been losing the argument for years.
Mr. Netanyahu is back in power, but more isolated than ever amid a corruption trial. So he assembled a coalition of the willing to help. His ministers include a far-right agitator convicted of race incitement and old ultra-religious allies, one this week struck from office for tax offences. Can he control them? He says he has both hands on the steering wheel, but the dangers are obvious to all.
A boy like this should have been able to have his childhood. What happened to that right?
For Palestinians in Dheisheh refugee camp, Israel's political convulsions don't mean much. After all, hopelessness feels like a way of life here.
Every night when you sleep, you cannot dress out your clothes because any moment they can just break the door and come in. It's scary.
Loué shows me the spot where soldiers on an arrest raid shot dead a 13-year-old boy, Amar al-Khamor, last week. The army said Palestinians threw stones, petrol bombs and explosive devices at troops, but gave no specific account of why the teenager was shot. As neighbours arrived to mourn, I met Amar's father, the second to lose a teenage son in the camp this month.
If a boy hits me with a stone, should I get a pistol and shoot him? There are things that the mind can comprehend and some things it cannot. It's beyond belief. To kill a child, to kill a boy, I'm helpless, I'm speechless, I don't know.
For Amar's mother, the embrace of friends. Yet another wake in the West Bank. At this one, national flags flutter next to those of the PFLP, a political and armed faction seen by Palestinians as part of their resistance. It is listed by Israel and the West as a terrorist group. The deaths in Dheisheh camp come after the most lethal year for Palestinians in the occupied West Bank in 2 decades. And last year saw the most deadly wave of Palestinian armed attacks against Israelis since 2015. But something else is going on. A new generation among both peoples hardening positions. young Palestinian men arm themselves in Jenin and Nablus, rejecting their aging leadership, the ones who signed deals with Israel. And nearby, beyond the army checkpoints, the most extremist Israeli settlers, who have always rejected their country's peace camp, push for a full takeover. They want to annex the West Bank, and now they're in charge.
You're going to the Knesset this morning?
Tzvi Sukkot's a symbol of the new coming to power.
Hello.
How are you feeling about becoming an MK?
Very excited. It's a privilege to be a member of the Jewish Parliament.
The army once expelled him from the West Bank for suspected involvement in violence against Palestinians. Now he's about to become an MP with the far-right alliance in the coalition.
Over there is a neighbourhood of Yizar. From the second side we see Nablus, Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. That's the place the people of Israel were born.
His party's in a government that claims exclusive Jewish rights to all the land, including the Palestinian territories.
Anyone who's not willing to accept this state, that there is a Jewish state and Jews living in the land of Israel, in my eyes, shouldn't be a citizen of the state. That's the story.
It sounds like you're saying Palestinians have to live in a land where they just don't have citizenship. And that sounds like apartheid.
It's not connected to the Palestinians. It's connected to anyone who is not willing to accept that there is a Jewish state in the land of Israel.
And the violence is only getting worse. This morning, a storm of gunfire, grenades and tear gas in a packed urban refugee camp. The lethal military raid into Jenin stopped attacks, said Israel, but may yet stoke an even further flare-up. The US Secretary of State arrives in days into a storm. Mr. Netanyahu may have two hands on the steering wheel, but Tel Aviv's protesters say it is his ultra-nationalist friends in the driving seat.